Welcome to the Juvenile podcast, co-hosted by Juan Camargo
and Nicole Tolochko.
The purpose of this podcast is to help students trying to break into the creative industry by sharing stories of other students that have done the same.
Today, we have Joe Yonke. Joe is studying advertising with a minor in digital media trends and analytics at Penn State University.
At school, he's vice president of the Ad PR Club and lead of research and strategy for his AAF chapter.
Right now, he is a media intern at Giant Spoon, and he has a huge list of accomplishments and amazing past internships.
So, without further ado, let's welcome Joe Yonke. Joe, welcome to the Juvenile podcast.
Thank you.
To start off, you go to Penn State University and study advertising with a minor in digital media trends and analytics. Can you talk a bit about your hobbies and involvements at the university, please?
Yes. Hi. So my involvements are it's mostly the Ad PR Club. So I have been in that all 4 years of college. Well, I guess 3, and now I'm going on my 4th. And I was the outreach chair before being the vice president. So every Monday we would have these speakers come who are working in the ad industry, and they would talk to the club. And then afterwards, the exec board goes out to dinner with them. So it's this really fun thing, and it's like a good way to obviously network and meet people. So I was doing that last year, and then now this year I'm going to be the vice president. My good friend Helena is leading it. And she's also one of the leaders with me for the AAF club, at least the Penn State chapter. So I was a research and strategy chair this last year. I'm probably going to do the same position this year. And let's see what else I got going on. So I think those are going to be the two main things that I'm doing. There's a few other clubs that I've done throughout my 3 years thus far, but those are the current ones. And then, I just finished that internship with Giant Spoon. I was a media intern, and I was assigned to Mass Mutual, which is one of their biggest clients, and they've had them for one of the longest comparatively. And now, it was really cool to work with a pretty large budget in media. So all those ad placements and whatnot that were going on, I got to see the process behind that. But those are the three main things. And then obviously I have the art career outside of the school extracurricular stuff.
That's quite a bit of stuff, Joe. I think it's you're very accomplished. And I think Giant Spoon's a great agency. I think they're very creative. I think their work is amazing.
Yeah, they're super impressive. I was just like, I interned for the small media buying agency in Pittsburgh the summer before this internship. And going from that to Giant Spoon was pretty unreal. It's just everyone's so impressive, and the work was huge. Even though it's considered like a small agency, they do massive work, and it's the group of people. It's just like I couldn't speak highly enough of them. It was a really special experience.
So when you said small agency, what qualified Giant Spoon for a small agency? How many people did they have about?
Yeah, so I think they're in like the low 100 range. Mm-hmm. But actually, you know what? I think they're probably it's hard to say because they had this big fluctuation. So they might be like mid 100s actually, like 150, something like that. Not too sure, but anyway, they still qualify as a small agency, I guess, because they just had those like small agency awards, and I guess Giant Spoon was a part of that. So or at least was invited and everything. So they said that they're one of the bigger ones out of those. So they're like kind of knocking on the door of like not being a small agency,
mm-hmm.
But anyway, still I guess they have that designation.
But I think it's really interesting, that dynamic, because being within a group of 100 people, I think, did you feel like being an intern, like your work really made a difference? Because I think that being at a bigger agency or anywhere bigger, your work can feel diminished, right? You're 1 in 1,000 or whatever.
Yeah, well, I think really how it goes is like, and for this should be the most case for most interns at an agency, is that you have your manager, and what I was really trying to do is just make my manager's life easier. So she was great, and she kept me busy, that for sure. And the work was definitely, yeah. I mean, it was like whether it was like stuff that was going to be a media recommendation for the client, or it was just stuff they needed to put together for whatever process they were doing for Q3 or a campaign or whatever. She would just she'd give me random assignments to help her with, and it all had to do with media, obviously. So whether that was like the strategy or anything, or the actual placements or orders that were going into it. Yeah. So no, it did. I did feel like it was work that was actually doing something for sure. So that, yeah, it was cool. It was very exciting, and yeah, I think part of the reason why it was exciting was because you knew that it was at least making some kind of an impact. So that was nice.
Well, to take a step backwards, you are having this great, huge internship at Giant Spoon, but what type of internships and opportunities did you have that led you there? Can you talk a little bit about those ones?
So I think really when I was going through interviews and whatnot, something that stuck out the most was all their extracurriculars I did. Stuff that I mean, like there was like, I'll give you an example, like a small social media agency kind of thing that Penn State students do for local and national clients sometimes. But I was involved with that for a while. It's called Happy Valley Communications, uh, and then all the other clubs I mentioned. Um, Obviously, taking school seriously and having decent grades helps a lot, especially when you're interviewing for those big agencies that have these students with all these great extracurriculars. Having the grades and whatnot definitely helps, and it shows that these classes that you're taking, that if you're an advertising major, you'll generally be aware of the stuff that is important, and you can actually do it. So like I've had to take a lot of media classes at Penn State, and knowing
Mm-hmm.
the rudimentary stuff of that from those classes really helped with this internship. And even from like a conversational level, like you could just at least talk about it for an interview, and stuff like that can go a long, long way. So,
Right. I think you know a little bit of the structure, right, of what an agency is like. And before that, you were also the vice president of the Ad and PR Club, right? You were talking about
yeah,
that a
so
little
I'm gonna
bit
do that. Yeah, I'm gonna do that
again.
now. So
Hmm.
like I've been in the club for my whole college experience, and that has been great because you just get to meet all these people who are working in the industry. And yeah, and now since I'm gonna just be sort of overseeing the whole thing, it's like it's funny because I'm sort of going full circle with it, because um like this person, that one of the people I kind of worked for Mass Mutual Giant Spoon, she was a Penn State alum, and she works with Giant Spoon now. She went through the same program that I did for my internship, like to get the placement at Giant Spoon, and she was the president of the Ad PR Club her senior year. So it's and she was like the super, it was just cool because I looked up to her, and she was super smart and all this stuff. And yeah, so now I'm just sort of doing that, and I guess doing relatively what she did. But it's just like stacking up all those experiences and stuff. They definitely add up after that, like few years. It's like it's nice to know that I took advantage of it.
Hmm.
And it pays off. I mean, it's like I feel comfortable about applying to those full-time roles or whatever I'm going to be doing. I mean, mostly I think it's going to be sort of away from media, and I want to do an account manager role. But regardless, I mean, it's the stuff you'll do in college. It really does. It can go a long way for just whatever it is in the ad industry I've learned. I mean, in Penn State's a great school for it, but I mean, there are plenty of good programs and whatnot, and stuff you can do like outside of that. Like for an example, to learn more, like I was saying, I listen to Breaking and Entering actually all the time with Gino, and I learned about all the different main agencies, because he had all those big people on there, and generally the dynamic of those agencies, and that was super insightful. And then it's just stuff you did, like I would do outside of that too. It's like you can do a lot of learning, even if you're not an advertising major. That will, it will allow you to know what doors to go for to get opened, and then how to get them opened as well. So it's been, yeah, it was nice because I got super interested in it. I think that's also part of something that's like important. You got to have an interest in it, and like that, then it becomes easy to do all this stuff,
So one of the things you mentioned was a podcast and Gino. And earlier, before we started recording, you told us a little bit about how you connected with Gino and talked to him a little bit about AAF. And you told us that your involvement with AAF is being the lead of research and strategy. So can you talk a little bit about what that entails? And also can you talk a little bit about what your AAF chapter does? Because every chapter does something completely different.
Yeah. So that National Student Advertising Competition, basically, you're putting a campaign together throughout the year and you pitch it to judges at the end of the year. So the client was Oculus, give a little background here. And so being the research and strategy chair, was like all the, to build the strategy, we're doing all this research to start out and just understanding the product, understanding the consumer and all these things. And then, once you are formulating the strategy, it will then allow those creative executions to be grounded in strategy. So I was a person who was generally making sure that the strategy was on aligned with the ask and everything, and that our research was going to be adequate enough to back up all of our justifications and how we came to these conclusions. So I think that all of our creative executions were really strong because we put a lot of emphasis into building that strong strategy and making sure everything was well aligned. So it's just a lot of rechecking our work and rechecking what we came up with and thinking through it. And it went a long way. We really put a solid campaign together. We have a really big district for our chapter, where our chapter's in a really large district. So we placed third in it. But we were really proud of it. And we had, some of these faculty members who helped, the club. And like, there's like, one was the VP for Leo Burnett at one point. The other worked for Lincoln Financial and corporate advertising his whole life. So it's like, if we were able to make, impress them with what we came up with, then, we knew we were on the right track. And it was just all this, that whole formulation that we had. And by the time we were ready to pitch it, I was one of the people who presented on the stage with all this. There's a bunch of people watching, and
that's terrifying.
Yeah, we memorized this like 20-minute presentation. It was me and 3 other people who are now, I was the only junior, but they were all seniors. So they're all like going into their jobs right now. And it was like, I still kind of get like, when I think about it. It's a lot. And it's really helpful because you learn what it's like to present like that. And it feels good that like, I'm still like, it's over. I can kind of chill for a while. And I'm probably going to present again this year. I don't know. I'm a little like, I could do without it, but yeah, we'll see.
Do you know who the client will be this year?
It's one of those clients that I think is for like ZipRecruiter or like some kind of hiring platform. I'm not too sure, but they have decided on the client. I've kind of been just caught up in my internship, so I haven't really been paying much attention to it. But yeah, just finished the internship, so I can start sticking my nose in other things. But it's been nice too. It's like I just had a very calm week and got some painting done. Very therapeutic.
Right. Let's dig into that. So we know you're very much an artist, right? Can you tell us about that and your journey? How you go from being like a fine artist to being this strategic head, talking to vice presidents, presidents.
Yeah. So my grandfather actually got me into painting because he's been an artist for a long time now. And he worked in advertising, so he also got me into advertising. So when I was going to choose my major at Penn State, I was like, all right, I'll do advertising because that's what my grandfather did. And we're very similar. So that I was like, all right, this makes sense. So Yeah, I've been painting my whole life, and then I think as of like 15 years old, I started selling my art, and then as of the last year, it was after being president of my fraternity sophomore year. I was like, okay, I want to put a lot more time into the art. Like I'm kind of becoming a little separated with who I really am, I think, and that it was something I needed. Um, and also during that time, I became really involved at Penn State. It was like all these things. I like kind of had this realization of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to sort of spend my time on. So yeah, the art stuff was going well. Like it's been great. It's funny. Like when the stuff really started to grow was when I actually started putting a lot of time into the extracurriculars and school stuff. So like I had that sophomore year experience with the fraternity, and I learned a lot from that, especially like time management and things like how to talk to people and things, which led me in that wanting to be an account manager direction. But yeah, it was like it was sort of a simultaneous thing where I had my extracurriculars going really well in advertising. Like this, I sort of got this internship lined up with Giant Spin, which was super exciting. But I was also putting a lot of time in to the art career, which was it was tough and like it kept me really busy. Um, but it's just I guess I had that last summer, when I was intern with that small media buying agency, I could put a lot of time into the art too because um, which is right when the sophomore year ended, because I was only working at the agency like 3 days a week. So those other days in the week, I
Hmm.
was just putting it into the art. So it was sort of just like I sacrificed like a lot of like social like stuff that I don't necessarily recommend, but I felt like it was fully worth it. And it was just and now you have all this progress and like the website came together really nicely, and I ended up selling a lot of work comparatively to like since I was like 15 or whatever, and grew my social media and yeah, so I wouldn't really put them separate because they were sort of just like me doing one or the other
Mhm.
throughout the past year or so, and it's definitely paid off. It's like just now, like thinking about how far you can go in just a year. It's pretty exciting because you think about, well, 5 years or 10 years, like
Mhm.
that's great, and then like those things open doors for like Giant Spoon and all these things. And without, without all of it, I wouldn't be at this point and
Mhm.
where I am right now. And like, just, then I can think, well, just wait for a few more years and I'll finally be working with an agency, actually, not as an intern. And that would be cool because, it's just for obvious reasons, like you actually have a job and you're making consistent money, and that helps with. I mean, the art stuff is now it is self sufficient, but um, yeah, it's like also being. I don't know. You got the. It's I'm so interested in advertising that that's exciting to finally work in it too. And now I'm
Mhm.
set up well because you put the work in, and next thing you know, you're either able to get a good internship or even a job after that.
Right.
So, what type of things goes into selling your artwork? Do you have to like set up any like business plans, anything like that, or were you just able to just set up the website and just start selling?
Yeah, so a lot of the time when the artists are starting out, it's a lot of word of mouth because your reach necessarily isn't that large, based on like whether that's social media followings or if it's like a your organic search when you have your website going on. Um, so it was a lot of word of mouth, sort of getting those first initial sales, and then my social media grew a lot just based on me working on that like marketing a little bit. I have a blog on my website, so that helped with organic search, um, and just sort of researching into what I need to do to grow, and covering those bases, like I've mentioned. I also set up stuff like a Google My Business profile, and that helped with my search appearance whenever people were searching artists and whatnot, even in when it came down to specific locations, like I have it focused on Pittsburgh, Maryland, which is kind of irrelevant, and then New York as well. So People are searching for artists, like stuff like that. It's just like you strategically find ways to appear, which we don't have to get into. And then it's just like, it's a sole proprietorship. So all this stuff, like I didn't have to start an LLC or anything necessarily. So, yeah, it's just like, it's funny because it's like, you have to treat it like a business to actually, to go anywhere with it, which I've learned. And I feel like a lot of artists, they sort of get caught up, or creative people get caught up in the creative stuff and they don't really focus on it. And that can hold you back for sure. But yeah. And the stuff I was learning in my classes for advertising, I'm a digital media trends and analytics minor, and I have now my Google Analytics page linked to my website. It's like all those rudimentary things that you learn about in those analytics classes. I was now applying to my art, and then like even researching markets or like figuring out ways to find out what people would want to buy. Like I started doing landscapes, which were really popular because you gotta think about what people want to hang in their houses. I do these crazy abstract portraits, and sometimes those don't appeal to everyone. So it's just like, again, you're like with marketing, you find out where your audience is and how to appeal to them. But yeah, starting out was a lot of the word of mouth, and and then eventually, you get like business cards and all these things, and you just get your ducks in a row. And then somehow it just seems like magic now. People just reach out, or they like send you a message on social media because they came across your Instagram page, and it's like, oh, this is pretty cool. And now it's just exciting. It's like, oh, this cool stuff's going on. And I'm just now I just have to make art, and then see if people find the stuff and they like it, then that's good news. So yeah, it's crazy. It's like so much stuff that I'm like, I have to circulate through my head that I'm like kind of, all over the place. But that's yeah, it's a lot to keep track of for sure. I just kind of throw myself into it,
But that's amazing. You can tell it really makes you happy and you really enjoy it. Is it,
oh yeah.
You mentioned that it's easier when you're, working full time at an agency, but if you could, would you want to just make a living out of your art? Would you want that to be your full time?
It's tough. So I think this is my plan, and I'll share it with you here. So I think I like advertising so much, and I put so much effort into growing as a student, essentially of advertising, and a student at Penn State. But that I would be kicking myself if I never ended up in advertising, at least to start. So I think I want to work in advertising indefinitely for a while, and then once I continue to grow the art career and it becomes very viable, then I will do that full time. But that will be like after a while. Like I would have no issue with just working on the art and also working in advertising my whole career. And then eventually, I'll just like, cause I can do art until I'm, in the grave. Like it's such an easy thing for me to do. And it's so like, it can be so painless in every regard. And it's just, you don't need to be like waking up, I don't need to be on a schedule for it. Like all these things, like reasons why people retire from their job. Like that luckily isn't the case for art. So yeah, I think that advertising is going to be the thing for a while for me, and we'll see where life takes me. But yeah, that's the plan. So
that's so sweet. It really looks like you're enjoying what you're doing, and I don't know, just saying that it's so exciting. I'm so excited for you. I mean, you're your own little account director with your artwork.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Yeah. I know, and you learn so much. It's funny how much there's a lot of overlap with it. So it's like, and that's something I would encourage students to do, is like just find something they're interested in outside of their classes, and if it's like an entrepreneurial thing, it will teach you a lot related to everything, and that's also a good way to stick out when you're applying places too. So it's all good things. Yeah, I'm very very fortunate that I sort of was brought up around art. Because if I didn't have like my grandfather or my parents, like, or like people that were like encouraging, then I wouldn't be still doing that. And that's a big part of who I am. So it's weird to think about. And it's like, it adds so much value to the other things too, in ways that I've sort of explained. So yeah, it's all exciting. Yeah, I can't complain. But everyone's interested in something, so I just encourage them to put some extra time in. And it's funny, like how how much of a difference that can make. Like you guys doing this podcast, like you don't waste on your phone or something. Like that's what everyone does in our generation. Like all this time, you're just sitting around. Like you think about that, you put those few hours in to something else every day. Like that makes a huge difference.
Oh, don't worry. I waste a lot of time on my phone anyway. So
and I even do too. And it's and you think about the stuff that that you could be doing otherwise. And I think that it's like, and the phones are great because I can do half of my stuff from my phone. I do half my marketing or whatever from my phone. It's super useful, but it's just there's so many distractions now. It's like, just if you can identify the distractions and try to navigate around them, then you can have a art career or something. I don't know, whatever they want to do, or like just excel in your extracurriculars in school. So yeah, and I don't want to be preachy because I'm an idiot, but it's like it is true though. I have friends who just, they could be doing a lot more, and it's just like, and like me, like how good it feels and how you can see that. Like I just want like, come on, like, just do it too. You got it. It's right there. Yeah.
I think it's the ease of it, right? You have it right there, and I think the biggest challenge is starting it with anything.
It
right?
is.
You gotta, it's starting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
With starting at Giant Spoon, how did you start off at first? What type of tasks did you have to do at your internship?
Okay, so
I'm jumping around here, but
no, you're good. Yeah. I'll try to, I'm gonna think about, say this like, I'm gonna be a little conscientious about what I can share exactly. But it was like putting certain recommendations together for the client, essentially, that would help them with either which social media platforms to use, or other mediums that they might be advertising on and why. So I would sit in all these meetings that they had with the client, or it was like inter-agency stuff. So like the team that worked on Mass Mutual, like I'd be in meetings with them, and I'd mostly just hear and become aware of the stuff that they got going on. And then my manager would shoot me something over, like, hey, like this thing we just talked about, can you help with X thing? And I was like, all right. And so you just sort of do those little tasks. And then like, I don't know, like sometimes I'd even be in like Simmons data and mess around in there to just put, things together for the client that would help essentially justify the ad placements that were going on, I guess. So, yeah, I'm kind of forgetting exactly what you asked originally, honestly, but I think that generally, yeah, like the stuff I was working on off the bat, yeah, that's generally it. Like it was just stuff that allowed them to move in the direction of those client meetings, or like allow them to move in the direction for when they have those client meetings, to have this whole like robust justification for why they're doing what they do, and sort of just like have it be a good service to them, like have all their ducks in a row, and have all this research, or like good looking slide decks that they can give during meetings. And I think I'd say that's like stuff I started out with, and then I continually did throughout the experience. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on today. And as our last question, what we always love to ask is, what are your tips and tricks for students wanting to succeed in advertising or media in general, or anything that you recommend for them to work on, other than starting their own thing, of course? But
yeah, other than that, it's really like getting involved in the stuff at school goes a long, long way. Everyone will tell you that because it's so true. And then just listening to stuff like, there's so many marketing and advertising podcasts out there, and you can do that while you're driving to the grocery store or anything. So listen to that stuff. That's how you can learn a lot easily from sort of just doing stuff that you know, like multitasking essentially. Mm-hmm. So that's huge. Really just become a student of all of it. If you're really interested in it, then just make a point to learn outside of the classroom. If you're not an advertising major, you have everything out there like HubSpot, just countless sources where you can learn and allow yourself to be able to talk for interviews, and or you know, and people can reach out to me too. I love to like give advice about that stuff, and but those are generally the main things that I can think of. So it's just like there's just do a little Google searching and you'll find plenty of things to teach you. And that's how you'll set yourself up if you just make a point to learn. And there's a million different ways to learn, obviously, like we've talked about. So, you know, it doesn't have to be something that you started on your own. It's all out there. So.
Right. And where can people reach you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, just search my name. It's Do Joseph, though, because Joe won't come up probably. So Joseph, Yonke. It's pronounced Yonke. And then my Instagram is like, it's JRYONKE, JR Yonke. Those are my two main ways to be reached. And people can find my email and stuff easily through those too. So.
And we'll also have your LinkedIn on our master resource list to make it a lot easier. So go on our website to find that resource list.
Yeah, great. Good. Well, I'm glad I'll be on there because I'll be happy to talk to anyone or whatever. Yeah. So.
Great. Well, thank you again, Joe, for coming on. We loved having you on, hearing a little bit about your story today.
Thank you.
If you like what you heard, check out our parent company's Instagram at Breaking and Entering Pod for more info on our guests and more content. That's at Breaking and Entering Pod.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time in the Juvenile podcast.